A little conversation with Hank South 247 Sports, Bama Online Recruiting. Hank, welcome into the Martin Houston Show. How you doing, sir?
Hey, good morning, Martin. I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing good. Just trying to recover from the historic day of yesterday. Pretty wild, pretty crazy from a national stage, sporting events being canceled. But it's not stopping there. It's getting all the way down to the recruiting trail. What are you guys hearing as far as the impact on your business? Because you guys have to do a lot of travel and back and forth as well.
Yeah, there hasn't been a major, shift in kind of change in operation for us yet. I know, I think some guys maybe take some precautions and changed around their schedule for, visiting camps, but I haven't seen a 7-on-7 tournament canceled yet. I haven't seen like any of these regional camps like we see with Under Armour or these Nike opening regional camps, postponed or anything yet. Maybe that starts to pop up today. After last night, I feel like anything's possible in terms of people kind of moving in a different direction as far as scheduling. But as far as recruiting visits, obviously we saw last night Ohio State, Michigan. They postponed all their spring visits until April 20th, which is just kind of insane. I mean, I'm not insane that they did it, but just like kind of an unprecedented move that we haven't really seen ever since I've been covering recruiting. They're going to cancel visits, and Ryan Day, the Ohio State head coach, said they're also not going to send send coaches out on the road this spring either, which is kind of crazy when you think about kind of the implications that could have just kind of on their 2021 cycle. Are other programs going to follow suit and do the same? I talked to a couple of recruits last night that are planning to go to Bama soon. And, either today, there's one guy expected today, and another guy planning later this month. And he was saying, that it's still on that he knows. He hasn't been told that they're not going to host visitors. So, it's kind of wait and see mode, but we'll see how this kind of continues to unfold. But it's business as usual covering Alabama recruiting at this point in time.
Yeah, and we may need business as usual, Hank, as the last 2 weeks we've dropped a couple of commits down to only one left in the class. Kind of talk about what's behind that. Should the Bama fans be worried or not? Or neither one of these guys really big surprises in terms of their decommit?
Well, I think both are really talented players. They were big commits. I mean, obviously, I think they'd prefer to keep them. But with Drake May, I don't think it's a huge surprise. Just kind of if you go back to Bryce Young flipping in September and joining the class, people were talking about it then. It was kind of didn't really get talked about a lot throughout the fall just because the season was happening and it wasn't really a huge topic of focus. But it was kind of always there in the background. How is that going to impact Drake May? He's certainly an elite talent that's probably looking to go somewhere and start right away, and certainly has the talent and ability to do that. It's been talked about a lot. He's a North Carolina legacy. His dad played quarterback in North Carolina. His older brother was on the basketball team, and a lot of family ties to North Carolina. There was kind of a notable thing that he picked Alabama over North Carolina when he did commit. But that they had a decent, pretty strong season for under Mac Brown in their first year. They kept in contact with Drake. He took a few visits, kind of under the radar, more so for going to support his brother for basketball stuff and not going on full on football visits. But he did keep in contact with the staff, and they ended up deciding to go ahead and part ways with Alabama and join that class. And I think I think the timing that he did it was better because he had been saying, Drake had been saying he was going to kind of see how the quarterback battle unfolded, kind of see who won the competition this spring or in the fall. But going ahead and flipping earlier now, I think is kind of a better scenario for Alabama in that they can kind of circle back and look at their options at quarterback and potentially go out and land another guy that they've liked in the past. So, or could this be this spring? So I think it wasn't a huge surprise that he flipped, but obviously it's a blow to the class in the recruiting rankings. It dipped them down into the 40s, I think. But from McCutcheon, I think not a huge, wasn't a huge shock either. He was talking about other schools all the time and taking visits, but I think, the first visit he's taken this spring, he decides to decommit. I think that was the only real surprise. I figured he might, get back to Alabama and see them again. But, if this was like August or July and Bama had one commit, there's probably a little bit of concern. But the fact that it's March 12th, visits are upcoming that we think are going to happen depending on what's going to happen with this coronavirus stuff. Bama has plenty of time to, kind of get things going. Usually we see things start to pop in late March, mid-April with more commits. So I don't think it's time to hit the panic button yet.
At Hank South 247 Sports, Bama Online Recruiting. Follow at Hank South 247. Hank, you have an article up about Alabama tight end target locks in a visit. I think tight end is definitely one of those positions that Alabama needs to hit a home run with in this 2021 class. What can you tell us about the tight end target?
Yeah, Hudson Wolf, he's a 4-star tight end out of the state of Tennessee. He's been a long-time target. I think it was just about this time last year. It was in March at some point that he visited on like a Tuesday afternoon, and Nick Saban offered him. He's been back to Bama, I think, 5 times since, I want to say. I think he came back in the summer. He came back for a couple games. Then he was back for Junior Day last February. But caught up with him and his dad, and they're planning on getting out to Alabama on April 3rd, the 3rd and 4th, to see a spring practice. And then they're going to come back for an official visit at the end of June, or before the dead period in June. So I think that's pretty significant. I've felt that Bama's been trending for him. A lot of schools are after him. Tennessee wants him, obviously. I believe Ole Miss has been pushing for him. Ohio State, some others. He's going to go visit Georgia. So he's on the radar for a lot of programs. But Bama's kind of seemed to be the one he's visited the most. Getting that potential last official visit there at the end of June when he wants to make a summer decision, I think that could be pretty notable in Bama's efforts for him. So that'll be a big couple of visits for him upcoming. Like you said, tight end's a position of need, and he's definitely, been the top target, if not, one of the very top targets on their board.
When you look in the state of Alabama, Thompson High School, with the recent change that they made in coaching and the way they run their program, they've definitely been a place that's been good to Alabama, and seems to be even more so with the most recent commit of the 2022 class, and Tony Mitchell, who was way over in 2023. Hard to believe we're talking about a commit from 2023, decommitting from Tennessee around the same time all of that was happening. Kind of talk about those two guys, what we're getting in the 4-star linebacker, top player in the state. Also, did Alabama have a direct impact coming off of that Junior Day with Tony Mitchell decommitting from Tennessee?
Yeah, I think Jeremiah Alexander is, he's a national top 10 player. I don't think he's done anything yet to, hurt that standing, if not just help it. He's coming off a junior season, he had 119 tackles and 9 sacks, and helping Thompson win the Class 7A state title. So, he's a big time player. And I talked to Thompson head coach Mark Freeman about him just to kind of get his take on where he's been, where he's come the most from freshman year to sophomore year. We really didn't even talk about him as a football player. Coach Freeman was just talking about how quality of a person he is, and I feel like that's becoming more and more of the trend when we're talking about these Bama commits. Nick Saban's talked about how they're recruiting character just as much as they're recruiting on the field talent, and every commit that we've talked about pretty much since they've kind of shifted that focus more and more to that in the last couple of years. That's been kind of the case. And so I talked to Coach Freeman, and he just said, I asked him what the biggest difference between Jeremiah from freshman year to sophomore year is, and he said his maturity. He thinks he's kind of the same maturity level as a senior in high school. He said he kind of understands everything that they need from him in terms of a leadership role, and he's just a very grounded, humble guy. So I think Bama's getting a really talented and really good guy on and off the field in Jeremiah Alexander. And a lot of the comments I saw when he first committed was, oh, well, he's 2022, he's going to flip. Like that's like the first impression people have with early commitments. And, I don't think this is the case with Jeremiah Alexander. I think he's one of, you see in-state guys commit, and it's very difficult. In my opinion, and I think a lot of people probably have this opinion, that in-state guys are pretty difficult to flip. Like, the right. Guys that have Alabama ties, that grew up Alabama fans, that live nearby Alabama, those guys usually remain pretty locked in. Maybe Jeremiah Alexander will still take visits, but I don't think he's the kind of guy. I think he's more of the kind of guy that's going to be a class leader than he is going to be looking around. So we'll keep an eye on that. But, yeah, Tony Mitchell, and even Peter Woods, two 2023 prospects from Thompson as well, both hold Bama offers. Tony Mitchell decommitted from Tennessee after the visit. We'll see. I think he might take a little bit of time just to kind of look around and see, if he's, all the options he has. But I do think Bama, really impressed him and is a school that he thinks very highly of. And, arguably, if you had to make a pick, I think I'd pick Bama for him at this point. Same with probably Peter Woods. So it looks like Bama's going to, have a pipeline started over at Thompson. It looks like at this point, with some of this young talent.
Yeah, absolutely. And Coach Freeman, great quality guy who's done some amazing things at whatever program, but has really taken Thompson to the next level. Speaking with Hank South, 247 Sports, Bama Online Recruiting. Hank, one last question for you this morning before we get out of here. Any updates on Bama basketball in terms of recruitment and what's happening since the way the season ended?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing right now is just, we've kind of been on Josh Primo, watch, I guess, since the end of February. He has a top handful of schools, but it's been considered an Alabama-Creighton battle, at least since President's Day. I think that's kind of when this all kind of started getting going in terms of him making a decision. He said he wanted to make a decision within a month when we caught up with him last. I think that's still kind of his timeline. I think we'll see him Josh Primo announce a decision here probably before the end of March. So I think that's kind of the biggest note. We'll see, depending on where Bama turns in terms of it will also depend on who stays and who goes after the season officially wraps up. But I could imagine Bama will probably look at grad transfer potentials, and there's a few other guys like Frank Anselm, a big man that's looking at reclassifying, and then JUCO ranks too. So I think there's some we'll see kind of as we learn who's going to be on the roster, but. I think Josh Primo is probably the biggest guy to keep an eye on in terms of what's next in Bama basketball recruiting.
All right, that's Hank South, 247 Sports. Hank, tell them where they can find you and what you got going on real quick.
Yeah, you can find us BamaOnline.com. It's a good time to sign up. Obviously, tomorrow with the start of spring practice. You can join on board. We have recruiting news all the time with that. Obviously, team news. Big spring. We'll see Bryce Young for the first time on the field tomorrow. You can join today for just $1 for the first month to try it out and see if you like it. So, good time to hop on board.
All right, that's Hank South, 247 Sports. Thanks, Hank. We'll catch up with you next week.
No problem. Thanks, Mark.